Oh, let's see. It's 26 and a half minutes until 2 a.m. I'm so in love with this station, I keep identifying it all the time. I'm Charlie Dugdale with the Channel 2 Late News. Ted Kenworthy has the night off. He'll be with you tomorrow night. The Pentagon announced Wednesday it will sell to Israel squadrons of its newest and most deadly fighter plane, the high-performance F-15 Eagle jet. Earlier this year, the Air Force said the F-15 had broken every climb-to-altitude record. The Air Force people call that time-to-climb record on the books, many of which were set by the new Soviet fighters the Eagle was built to combat. Ike Pappas has more on that story.
The Israelis asked the Pentagon not to reveal how many F-15s they want to buy, but Israel is said to be interested in 25 of the aircraft at a basic cost of $15 million each. The F-15 is America's most advanced fighter. Heavily armed and highly maneuverable, it is ideal for dogfights. The Israelis want the F-15 to offset the latest Russian fighter, the MiG-23, which has been supplied to Egypt and Syria. The Israeli deal represents the first foreign sale of the F-15. Only 49 have been built for the American Air Force. Pentagon sources feel it is unlikely the aircraft will come out of present inventories. The fighters the Israelis will get probably will come off McDonnell Douglas production lines, which are currently turning out about 5 a month. No delivery dates were revealed. The Pentagon also announced a $1.8 billion deal with the Saudi Arabians to complete the American-backed modernization of the Saudi Air Force. The latest deal is to build airfields and other facilities for the 100 F-5 fighters the Saudis are buying from the Northrop Corporation. That $3 billion modernization has caused uneasiness in Israel. Although the Saudis are not presently considered Middle East combatants, Saudi jets recently took part in maneuvers in Syria. Ike Pappas, CBS News, the Pentagon.
Racial violence was expected Wednesday in Boston, the first day after a U.S. district judge placed racially troubled South Boston High School under federal jurisdiction. Judge W. Arthur Garrity named a federal receiver to run the school and barred the Boston School Committee from having any say over what happens at the school. Don Clapstrip has more on the story.
Security was heavy at South Boston High this morning. Extra contingents of the Boston Tactical Patrol, state police, and federal marshals were moved in following Judge W. Arthur Garrity's decision to place the school under federal receivership. According to the order, South Boston's headmaster and some members of the faculty and staff will be transferred to other city schools, with the federal court having more direct control over the everyday operations of South Boston High. Today, teachers protested the ruling and said they were showing up only out of concern for the safety of the students.
We feel as if this is undermining the morale of the faculty completely. I mean, I'm going in here with I'm just sick to my stomach going into this building today because of the action.
The action came after Judge Garrity complained his desegregation orders were being ignored by the Boston School Committee. The plan, he said, is not by a long shot being implemented at South Boston High School. It's not even close to being implemented. Garrity also expressed concern about violence against black students, a feeling shared by many of those who were bussed in today.
Things aren't any better now.
No better. It's not going to be. It's going to get worse now, you know, because they're getting rid of somebody they like.
Less than half of the 301 blacks enrolled at Southie attended school today. The story was the same for white students, many of whom boycotted classes. Inside, tensions were high. Several fights were reported and 3 students were arrested. 9 others were sent home. Across town at Charlestown High, another bastion of anti-busing sentiment, white students walked out of classes to protest the court ruling. Last night, Boston's NAACP headquarters was firebombed in an apparent protest of the Garrity ruling, but so far no arrests have been made. This school day ended peacefully, but heavy security will be maintained should coming days prove different. Don Cladstrip, CBS News, Boston.
Law enforcement officials may finally be close to solving the mystery of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. And the nation's taxpayers came one big step closer to a continued cut in their income taxes. These stories and more after a break. Again, the news. There were 2 important developments in the Jimmy Hoffa case Wednesday. That man who reportedly claimed he was a former Hoffa bodyguard and sold CBS a bill of goods about knowing the location of Hoffa's body was arrested at a New Orleans motel. He was charged with escaping from a federal prison halfway house, but was not charged with stealing nearly $10,000 from the broadcast network. Wouldn't you know it'd be this one? Meantime, the Hoffa case came near a solution in Detroit, and Bill Plant has that story.
Last week, the Bergoglio brothers, Salvatore and Gabriel, and the Andretta brothers, Thomas and Stephen, all took the Fifth Amendment when federal grand jurors sought to question them. The government says that an informant has named the Bergoglios and Thomas Andretta as participants in Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. Today, a federal judge in Detroit issued a court order commanding Stephen Andretta to appear before the grand jury tomorrow and granting him immunity from prosecution. Government attorneys said in court Stephen might testify against his brother and the Bergoglios. But Stephen Andretta, who was followed out of the courthouse by a gaggle of pushing, shoving newsmen, had nothing to say today, and no one close to this case believes that he will talk tomorrow. The government says that in that event, he'll be jailed for contempt. U.S. Attorney Ralph Guy told newsmen recent developments in the case have led to speculation and confusion and sought to set the record straight.
In order to clear the air and bring an end to this confusion, I'm announcing at this time that there are no, I repeat, no indictments anticipated in the near future in the Hoffa case. The FBI is continuing an intensive investigation and recently have developed some significant new leads.
Federal investigators believe that they now know the broad outlines of the Hoffa case, that he was killed by racketeers within the Union, and sources close to the family agree that the government is on the right track. But putting all of those pieces together in New Jersey, here, and elsewhere, making a government case that will stand up in court will probably take a long, long time. Bill Plant, CBS News, Detroit.
The Senate Finance Committee came up with something for the U.S. taxpayer Wednesday amid indications that President Ford will no longer dare to veto a Democratic tax cut bill. The committee, ignoring the administration veto threat, refused to tie continuation of this year's tax cuts for another 6 months to a cut in federal spending. Bob Schieffer has more on the story.
Today, the battle lines were clearly drawn. The president told Republican leaders flatly he will veto any tax cut bill unless Congress agrees to put a ceiling on federal spending next year. The president wants a ceiling of $395 billion. Officials say he might go along with a somewhat higher figure, perhaps $400 to $405 billion, as part of a compromise. But as Minority Leader Scott said later, no one expects the Democrats to agree to that.
There was a general feeling that the majority party simply doesn't want to be pinned down to a spending ceiling because it runs counter to their philosophy, and that's where the problem is. There are areas of compromise, but how can you compromise with people who won't compromise?
A few hours later, as Scott had predicted, the Democratic caucus voted to recommend a 6-month extension of the current tax cut, but with no spending ceiling attached to it.
We simply will not agree to letting the president completely torpedo this new budget process, which has been welcomed by people all across this country for its display of fiscal responsibility on the part of Congress.
Although Republican leaders said early in the day they had no head count on congressional support for Mr. Ford, White House sources confirmed privately tonight that as of now, the Republicans simply do not have the votes to sustain a presidential veto. One reason, perhaps, the Democrats seemed in such an uncompromising mood today. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, the White House.
When we continue, the daughter of New York Yankee manager Billy Martin is arrested on cocaine-carrying charges. There's some great quotes in that story. Don't miss it. It'll be coming up here in a second. And it flashes and it sings and it towers above the Los Angeles Mall. But what is it? We'll find out after a 60-second break. Now, back to the news, turning to sports. In hockey Wednesday night, the L.A. Kings skated to a 5-zip shutout victory over St. Louis, while the California Seals tied the Philadelphia Flyers 1-1. Now, here's a name. Have you ever heard of a name like this? First name, Policarpo? Policarpo, P-O-L-I-C-A-R-P-O, Policarpo Fernandez, a Colombian lawyer who was an admirer of Yankee manager Billy Martin when he played second base. Anyway, Fernandez said last night he never liked Martin's big mouth. Fernandez is defending Martin's 23-year-old daughter, Kellyanne, against charges she tried to smuggle a pound of cocaine from Barranquilla to the United States. Martin said Wednesday, quote, "I'm working on getting her out of Colombia right now. All I know is some lawyer down there is trying to fleece me out of an awful lot of money," end quote. Fernandez shot back, quote, "I haven't received a nickel or a peso, but you don't work for nothing anywhere in the world. Martin always had a big mouth," end quote. And on it goes. Love that story. In the weather, if it's drizzling where you are right now, it's likely to go right on doing it well into the morning. That's because of, quote, "an upper-level disturbance of cold, moist, unstable air," end quote, over central and southern California. And that disturbance will bring mostly cloudy weather with little sunshine this afternoon, with the high in the mid-60s. This morning's low will be about 50 degrees. It apparently isn't enough that most of the world already thinks of Los Angeles as sort of a megalopolis Disneyland. The city fathers have now come up with a new attraction that even out-Disneys the big Orange County attraction. And Terry Drinkwater tells us all about it.
Paris has the Eiffel Tower. New York, the Statue of Liberty. Chicago, it's Picasso's sculpture. And now Los Angeles has its Triforium? It's a 6-story high tower topped with colored lights, which pulsate in time to the music. Inside, there's a keyboard, electronic whirligigs which set off bell sounds, and a tape deck. All of these, and even live music, fed into a computer which activates the lights. A $1 million civic investment. The inventor says it will uplift the citizens of Los Angeles.
I would hope they get a feeling of exhilaration and joy, the greatness of being alive, and a great city, and a great time in the world's civilization. I'm a very optimistic person.
Its enthusiasts say the Triforium is what its Latin name suggests, a 3-sided work of art, designed as the crowning glory to the new multi-million-dollar downtown mall. But some at City Hall are not so euphoric.
The Triforium will be a different kind of a landmark. It'll be the landmark which people will come to and say, "What the hell is this?" And then they'll go back and tell everybody that there's this weird thing sticking out of downtown Los Angeles which plays music and has lights on it. They don't know what it is, and they don't know why the people of Los Angeles went along with the $1 million expenditure, but it was really funny when they saw it.
Plans call for the Triforium to issue forth everything from Mozart to Elton John. Is it a monument worthy of the City of Angels, or is it just a giant jukebox? The vast majority of people in this city will probably never find out, because they don't go downtown after dark anyway. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Listen, Dr. Young, you pay no attention to what Zev said. I like it. I think it's pretty. Of course, what do I know? Well, at 10 minutes to 2, that's the Channel 2 late news. Ted Kenworthy will be back in this chair again tomorrow night, and I'll be sound asleep, I suspect, since it'll be my night off. Got a good movie coming up for you on The Late Show, Loss of Innocence, with Kenneth Moore, Susanna York, Danielle Darrieux. Oh, remember her? Tender story of a woman who becomes involved with a handsome jewel thief. Hey, that'll be a goodie. Don't forget our Channel 2 CBS Morning News at 7 this morning, with Hughes Rudd anchoring from New York. I'm Charlie Dugdale, wishing you all a happy Thursday. Good morning.